Home for Hannity each afternoon at 3 p.m. Talk 96.3 and 103.7. Welcome in to News and Views with Tom Lamprecht. The stories you've heard and the ones you need to hear.
Cowardly anonymous sources.
This is not a political process.
They are literally playing politics.
It is a public health process.
Speaker Pelosi decided she wanted everything on the table at once. It's been one of the most dysfunctional summers.
There's more that we agree upon than what we disagree upon.
The clock is ticking.
Your life, your values, your voice. This is News and Views with Tom Lamprecht on Talk 96.3 and 103.7.
All right, welcome in. Post Labor Day holiday. Hope you had a good weekend. Lots to talk about today. The president is going to be back in North Carolina tomorrow. He's going to be up in Winston-Salem. And in a little bit, we're going to be talking to Mark Lotter about the president's visit and the election in general. Mark is pretty high up. He is the strategic communications director for the Trump-Pence election campaign. Been very involved with Donald Trump and Mike Pence before they took over in 2016 in the White House. So we'll be talking to him, and should be a good interview. The 60 days approximately left to election. I guess it's exactly 2 months from today, right? How's it going? How's the polling going? It's interesting to see how desperate the Democrats are. They've been all over Donald Trump saying he hasn't done enough for COVID. He hasn't been quick enough. So over the weekend, Kamala Harris and Joe Biden are both out there talking about, you know what? If they come up with a vaccine before the election, I'm not going to take it because Donald Trump has rushed it through just for political reasons. The guy can't win. If he gets a vaccine done before the election, he's a villain because he did it just for political reasons. But if he doesn't get it done, he's slothful and therefore doesn't deserve to be the president. Speaking of elections, remember during the Republican National Convention, Madison Cawthorn, who is the paraplegic that was speaking during the event. He is running for the North Carolina 11th Congressional District. He is the one that got up and spoke, probably 5 minutes or so, and he actually stood up had to have two friends help him stand up, but he stood up for the flag. Pretty moving moment. The guy he is running against is a guy named Mo Davis. Well, First and Freedom Daily, along with the North State Journal, are reporting on Mo Davis. I knew nothing about the guy. The only thing I heard about the guy was that he was a retired Air Force colonel. Isn't it interesting how the Democrats love to find someone with a military background, even though they hate the military for the most part? They find someone with a military background that sounds like they're really going to be the kind of, all-American guy that everyone would want to vote for. So what do you know about this guy, Mo Davis, other than the fact that he is a retired Air Force colonel? He's also an attorney, and again, he is the current Democratic candidate for North Carolina's 11th Congressional District. Apparently, a year ago, he never imagined that he would be the Democratic candidate for the North Carolina 11th Congressional District. Why do I say that? Because a year ago, he was tweeting things like this. Mo Davis, at Colonel Mo Davis. I've got to edit this very carefully, otherwise we might lose our license. Screw they go low, we go high, BS, except he spells it out. When at North Carolina GOP extremists go low, we stomp their scrawny, pasty necks with our heels, and once you hear the sound of a crisp snap, you grind your heel hard and twist it, slowly, side to side for good measure. He knows who whooped up his aunt. So they're the tolerant ones, huh? But this is apparently how this guy treats people. Another tweet. And again, many of his tweets use rather strong language. As an example of one such attack on the president and the first lady, he tweeted this back when Barron was just a baby. quote, "You've got to be a 100% purebred, worthless blankety blank blank to do a grinning photo doing a thumbs up while your foreign-born nude model third wife holds the baby of two parents who were slaughtered by another blank blank who is carrying out your racist blank blank blank." I know you don't understand it all because I've got to blank out every other word. He also tweeted about North Carolina's Republican Party in September of 2019, calling the party extremist and alluding to snapping Republicans' necks. Other past tweets by Davis were uncovered include attacks on the National Rifle Association, referring Trump rallies to Klan rallies, agreeing that Make America Great Again hats are the new KKK hoods, and repeating the Russian collusion conspiracy theories. Yet another tweet attack came after Secretary of State Mike Pompeo. This guy's going to get struck by lightning if he's not careful. He went after Mike Pompeo's religious beliefs, his Christian beliefs, with a string of insults about President Trump. If you think you've been called by Christ while you're serving as the lead fluffer for the profane, serial, adultering, immoral, habitual lying, narcissistic, draft-dodging grifter at real Donald Trump, then it's obvious Jesus butt-dialed you by mistake. He tweeted that in October of 2019. Davis's tweets also referred to the Covington Catholic students and Nick Sandmann as maggots. And yet, with all this, what does Governor Cooper say about Davis today? With so much at stake, it's important we elect a leader who is committed to working for policies that will move North Carolina and our country forward. Mo Davis is that leader. Where's the outrage? Where's the outrage from the left every time Donald Trump hiccups or has any kind of tweet? Oh, he's not presidential. Is this guy worthy of being a congressional candidate? Just asking. One of the things I want to talk to Mark Lauder about is more and more coverage is coming out on the issue of mail-in ballots. By the way, North Carolina is the first state in the nation, which started last Friday, became the first state in the nation to send out general election ballots to registered voters who requested them. Now, there are stories out there that some states are just trying to send out ballots to everybody, whether you request them or not. What's really interesting, and by the way, in California over the weekend, there was in two different locations in California, there were 2 truckloads of mail and packages that were just dumped onto 2 different parking lots. I'm at thousands of letters just dumped. That makes you feel good. That makes you feel secure. Not bags, truckload of bags of mail and packages. I know it doesn't happen all the time. There are a lot of good people out there working for the postal system, but it does happen. Is this who we want to entrust our next election to? So North Carolina last Friday became the first state sending out general election ballots to registered voters who requested them. But more than 3 times as many Democrats than Republicans have sought ballots so far. And it's not just in North Carolina. In Florida, the largest of the crucial swing states, 47.5% of the requests for ballots come from Democrats, 32 from Republicans. Similar story in Pennsylvania, another battleground state. Democrats are nearly triple those of Republicans. In Ohio, half of ballot requests have come from Democrats, 38% from Republicans. In Wisconsin right now, an equal amount of Democrats and Republicans have requested ballots. A recent USA Today Suffolk University national poll found that 56% of Republicans said they would vote in person on Election Day, compared with just 26% among Democrats. The poll indicated that Democrats are more than twice as likely than Republicans to vote by absentee ballot or mail. And again, the problem with all this is how many of these ballots are going to be showing up days later. There's got to be a cutoff that is fairly close to the election. I mean, if you can't get your ballot in the mail postmarked by Election Day, I mean, it should be at your local, the person that counts in your election office. Shouldn't it be there by 3 days later at the latest? Frankly, I think if you're going to, if we're going to do this thing well, with mail-in ballots. I don't know. Maybe somebody out there knows when does an absentee ballot have to be to the election office to count? 5618255. Good question. In Georgia, the Secretary of State Brad Ravensburger said Tuesday that 1,000 Georgians voted twice in the state's June 9th primary, a felony that he would say would be prosecuted to the fullest extent of the law. So 1,000 people were caught just doing that in Georgia. Now, there's other ways you could commit fraud, obviously, but they know of 1,000 Georgians who voted absentee ballot and then showed up and voted in person. Remember, now that's one state, and that's just one way of cheating. Remember the 2016 election. Now, obviously, they had to be key states that carried the Electoral College votes. But in terms of the popular votes in those key states, the difference was only 78,000 votes between Donald Trump winning or losing. And in Georgia, you have 1,000 people just in that one state who just cheated by voting twice. Clark, my producer, has something.
I found for North Carolina, absentee ballot voting is available and no one excuses required. The last day to request an absentee ballot is 7 days before the election.
But that's the last day to request it. When does it have to be in by?
Voted ballots must be received by Election Day in order to be counted.
Okay. So obviously they've got a few days. But that's just North Carolina.
Correct.
So what are the other 50 states doing? It's going to be a mess, and we'll talk to Mark Lauder about that. Let's take a time out. When we come back, we're going to be joined by Mark. Much more to come. Stay with us. More news and views coming right up.
With summer winding down and fall around the corner, don't let the family fun end. Wimbledon Tennis and Recreation Center is offering a special rate until the end of the year of just $60 per person or $75 per family with a $200 initiation fee. Get in the game with year-round activities including Wimbledon's outdoor lighted hydro grid clay courts, 3 indoor high-quality tennis courts, and access to a state-of-the-art fitness center. Your membership includes indoor and outdoor tennis, pickleball, outdoor pool, and a fitness center with equipment and weight training. They offer tri-tennis programs, youth and adult activities, monthly member specials and tournaments, and lessons from their USPA certified on-site pro, Will Bissett, and staff. Wimbledon Tennis and Recreation Center is located right in the heart of Greenville off Arlington Boulevard on Wimbledon Drive. For membership information, contact Whitney Sauter at 252-916-5333. Again, that's 252-916-5333. Or visit their website at wimbledonathletics.com.
Hey, Dad, what's for dinner?
How about CPW's?
Is that the restaurant with the really good lasagna?
It sure is.
Is that the place we got the awesome meat pizza?
Yep, that's the place. Should we do dine-in or take-out?
I'm tired of eating it. Let's go there!
Just say no to cooking tonight and bring the family, or make it a date night at CPW's. CPW's is open daily at 3 p.m. and has been serving the Greenville community since 1995. CPW's in the Food Lion Shopping Center near the hospital.
Transworld Business Advisors is the largest and fastest growing business brokerage and M&A firm in the world. And my buddy Tony Corey and his wife Jarma have brought this wonderful company to Greenville and northeastern North Carolina. And Tony, tell us about Transworld Business Advisors.
Thanks, Henry. Basically, our Transworld team here in eastern North Carolina confidentially helps both buyers and sellers with the purchase or sale of a business.
So, Tony, what's the process that a buyer or a seller would go through in working with you?
The best way for us to analyze what their need is for them to call us, because Transworld's been in business for over 40 years, and we can customize an approach that's right for them. For more information, you can check out our website at www.transworldeast.com, or you can call me personally on my cell phone at 252-347-9606, or transworldeast.com.
Transworld Business Advisors.
This weekend on Heart Health Radio.
You don't get fat from eating fat. You get fat from eating simple carbohydrates and sugar and the inside of a white potato and white rice, because those are broken down into a simple sugar.
Listen to Heart Health Radio on Apple Podcasts or at hearthealthradio.com. And listen Saturday at 2, Talk 96.3 and 103.7.
I just had my hair washed.
It's the stuff people are talking about.
There are 7 vaccines globally now.
So let's keep the conversation going.
Unemployment rate, 8.4%.
The economy is recovering.
1.4 million jobs added.
America's economy is coming back much stronger than ever anticipated.
Here's Tom Lamprecht with more news and views on Talk 96.3 and 103.7.
Welcome back in. It is 20 minutes after the top of the hour. Taking a look at your weather forecast. Don't complain. We need the rain. Chance of showers and thunderstorms mainly after 1 o'clock tonight with a low around 73. Chance of precip 30%. Tomorrow we'll have a high around 84 and chance of rain is 70%. Same again for Thursday. So the rain that we haven't been getting, we're going to make up for it the next couple of days. But man, what a good-looking holiday weekend we had. I mean, it was perfect. It was Chamber of Commerce weather. Weather brought to you by the Ironwood Golf and Country Club. Have a big event coming up this year? Celebrate it at Ironwood Golf and Country Club. We've made over $300,000 in upgrades and improvements just to the clubhouse. The place is looking better than ever. The clubhouse is the perfect setting to host your wedding, birthday, anniversary, baby reveal party, graduation celebration, business meeting, holiday party. Ironwood offers several private party spaces leading out to terraces with beautiful views of the Lee Trevino Signature Golf Course. Make your celebration one to remember at one of the most beautiful venues in eastern North Carolina. Contact Taylor Hetzel, Banquet Manager at Ironwood Golf and Country Club. Her number is 252-752-4653, or you can email Taylor at foodandbeverage@ironwoodgolf.com. Believe it or not, I mean, Labor Day has come and gone, so now's the time to even be making plans for your business Christmas parties at Ironwood. Mark Lauder is president of Lauder Communications and serves as a surrogate for President Trump and Vice President Mike Pence and their political efforts. He's a regular guest on numerous national news outlets. In fact, if we weren't on radio and you'd recognize this guy right away, he has served as special assistant to the president and press secretary to the Vice President Mike Pence during pretty much most of the first year of the Trump administration. Mark currently serves as Director of Strategic Communications for the Trump-Pence reelection campaign, and he's on the telephone with us right now. Mark, welcome back in.
Oh, well, thanks for having me.
Hey, we're happy that North Carolina is getting so much attention. The president was down in Wilmington a week ago. He'll be in Winston-Salem tomorrow. And as Director of Strategic Communications, how closely do you look at which state the president is going to be in and how impactful it will be to the upcoming election?
Well, I think we follow that very closely, and we want to make sure that we make the best use of the president's time and the vice president's time. So you saw that obviously the president's in Florida, North Carolina. The vice president's going to be in Pennsylvania tomorrow. The president's headed out west to Nevada here coming up. So we track that very closely, but what we also track is where are our opponents going? Right. And remember, about 2 weeks ago, Joe Biden was saying he wasn't going to come out and campaign until after Labor Day, and then all of a sudden he had to come out to Pennsylvania. He sent Kamala Harris to Wisconsin. He's even going to Michigan for the first time in 6 months, and there's a reason for that. All the polls are showing that he's losing now in all of those places. There's a massive wave building right now for President Trump's reelection, and they're panicking, and Joe Biden's having to come out of the basement.
Well, I was going to ask you about that because obviously we've seen the polls and you are having privy to more probably insider polls than we get to see. You say it's massive. I mean, you really feel like it's I don't want to say tsunami. Maybe that's an overstatement, but it's pretty significant.
Well, I think it's pretty significant when you look at what we're talking about. You know, it wasn't that long ago that there were polls that showed that the president was losing in Florida, right. And now there was even a poll that came out today that shows that it's tied. The president, according to the Real Clear Politics average, was down by 8.5 points in Michigan just a few months ago. It's now down to 2.5% if you believe the public polling averages. And so what we're seeing is that's a big shift of 6 points or so in just the recent months, and I think there's a big reason for that. First, it's obviously economics. People are very excited because the economy's coming back. We're getting back to work, getting back to life. But also, I think what you're seeing when you look at America's cities, on fire, rioting, looting, people are shaking their heads, and the Democrats' answer was to call police the enemy, to call for defunding the police. I think it just leaves people shaking their heads. That's not America.
I don't know if you saw the chief of police in Rochester, New York, resigned today. He's had enough. speaking of polling, does the president worry about? I'm not a worry, but does he look at the polling? Because so often when he's in these rallies, he sort of throws up his hands against living by the polls. Does he take a look at them?
Well, he keeps abreast of where things currently are, and he's that's the one thing about this president. He's a businessman, so he's all about the numbers. Whether it's the bottom line about what we're spending or where we're spending it on, or he takes a look at, obviously, our internal numbers. He sees the public polling as well, as everyone else does. And what he's very excited by is that when we look back, and this is, we're ahead of where we were in 2016 when we won. We are ahead of even where Barack Obama was in 2012 at this point when they won. And so, we can look at these kinds of internal things along with a number of different metrics and see that we're building the team, building that coalition, or as the president likes to say, building the movement that will reelect him. The key now is to make sure that everybody gets out and exercises their right to vote. And I know the ballots are on the kitchen tables right now across North Carolina. That's why you see the president there, because he wants to make sure that people are thinking about what this choice actually means.
Now, 4 years ago, when he was running for the first time, the crowds were massive. It appears that the crowds are pretty good, but with COVID, how do they compare to 4 years ago?
Well, they're different. We obviously, even earlier this year before COVID, we were setting records that we had set, that the president had set 4 years ago. He even broke Elton John's record at an arena in New Hampshire. And so we saw all those things. And then obviously COVID has changed a lot of that, but it also doesn't change what we basically do. You see the Republican Party in North Carolina. You see the Republican National Committee and our teams all out there knocking on doors, phone calls, text messages to people. We want to make sure that people who support this president understand that it's important that we have such a huge margin of victory that the Democrats can't steal and cheat it away from him. Because, we see this going on in state after state where they're trying these untested, unproven ballot, mailing out ballots to everyone. I know there's a couple in California that got 80 ballots mailed to them.
80.
That's how out of 80. That's just ludicrous. And they're thinking that's security?
Yeah. We're talking to Mark Lotter. He is currently the Director of Strategic Communications for the Trump-Pence reelection campaign. It's interesting. You talked about how Joe Biden finally got out in the campaign trail. I was, watching his visit to Pittsburgh last week. I didn't see it live, but I went home that night after work and looked online and watched the news, and I thought, wait a minute, this is a campaign rally? He was in an empty warehouse. Do you think that one of the reasons he's all about COVID. He's masks all the time, masks everywhere. Is he using that, do you think, to downplay the fact that maybe he couldn't get a crowd?
Well, there's a good question about that, because we even saw that, even back before COVID when he was running, and the party had basically left him for dead. Politically, he was barely able to get a crowd. I used to joke that he couldn't fill a socially distanced Waffle House. So we're seeing that still, and there's a lack of enthusiasm, and you see that in the polling, and that's another reason why so many of these national polls, when they undersample Republicans, well, we know Republicans are more energetic about supporting the president than Democrats are about supporting Joe Biden. So it just amplifies a bias effect. And it's why so many of these national polls are just flawed at their very core.
Right. I don't remember as much brouhaha about the enthusiasm gap 4 years ago as is playing this go round. Was the enthusiasm gap measured very much 4 years ago?
Well, I think it was different. It was difficult for them to measure it for a couple of reasons. One is that this president brought so many new and non-Republican traditional voters to the table, right, whether they're blue-collar voters, whether they are, members of, if they're Black Americans or the Hispanic and Latinos. So it was difficult for them to measure it, but we can measure it now, and we can see it. And one of the things that I point to is back in the primary season, in 23 of the 27 states that vote year after year after year, President Trump set a new record for the number of votes received by any incumbent president of either party He got more votes than Barack Obama did in 12. He got more votes than George W. in 4. He even got more votes than Ronald Reagan in 1984. And so it shows you that it's not just something that we can measure via the polls. We can measure it with just the turnout apparatus that we have and the number of people who are willing to stand in line in the cold, in the heat, in the rain, even in COVID.
Yeah. In fact,
just to vote for a man in a race that didn't even count. You already won it.
And there was someone out there who measures that and said, but by that measure, I can't remember what the guy's name was, but I remember he came out, and apparently this study has been going on for a lot of years. And I think the only time it didn't pan out was maybe in the Gore race, but he was saying because of what you just mentioned about how many people voted in the primary that he thought that Donald Trump was going to easily win come November. Let's talk about the mail-in ballot situation, because obviously that's in the news all the time. There's a couple of stories out today. I just mentioned before you called in that there's a new story out that 1,000 voters in Georgia voted twice, once with absentee ballots and then once in the June 9th primary. There's other stories out about how Democrats are asking in some states for three times the number of Democrats are asking for absentee ballots than Republicans. And of course, the president has talked time and time again about how they're taking measures to make sure that nothing illegal is done and how they have certain cases before courts. What's the update on that?
Well, we're fighting it in the courts, where you see in many of these Democrat-run states, they've either done it via executive order or administratively tried to change election law to mail out live ballots. We are not talking about absentee ballots. We're talking about people just blindly mailing out live ballots to anyone and everyone. Like I said, that couple that got 80 in California. And then they're also following it up with something called ballot harvesting, where they send Democrat operatives door to door to collect your ballot. And they'll collect it on your behalf. And you really don't even know, if you're a Republican, if that ballot's going to go, if it's going to actually get into the mail, if it's going to be changed. There was a story just a couple of weekends ago about a guy in New Jersey who said ballot fraud is real. He specialized in it, and he did it on a massive scale. He would change votes.
Well, we have our own ballot harvesting issue here in North Carolina, where people are probably going to go to jail for the special congressional race that took place 2 years ago out of the Charlotte area. So yeah, we're well aware of ballot harvesting. It's rather ironic that in some states you go to jail for it, in other states you're commended for it.
Right, and that's one of the reasons why the president's has been so adamant that if you are going to vote by mail, and if you're going to take advantage of the absentee balloting or the early balloting, then just make sure it gets counted. And if not, then go cast a provisional ballot. Make sure it's provisional, but make sure that your vote is counted, and don't let anyone steal it from you. And so, because it is our right, and we need to make sure that there's no shenanigans played in any state, that every legal vote is counted. And that's what the president is trying to make sure happens in North Carolina and everywhere else.
Are you surprised that the Democrats have overplayed their hand when it comes to all the rioting that's taking place around the nation? I mean, there's no way that the Democrats can embrace that they're for law and order when you see what's going on.
Well, it doesn't surprise me, because they're stuck between basically a proverbial rock and a hard place, because so many of the base of their party has become radicalized. They are the radicals who are demanding revolution, and they're the activists. They're the ones that they're trying to appease, the AOCs, the squad. And so they can't distance themselves from it, and so they're alienating so many voters in the middle. I've said this many, many times. When you look at Joe Biden, not just his recent comments on law and order, although that's a great example, but even look at his policy proposals. The Democrat Party of your parents and your grandparents is dead. I mean, they're literally talking about eliminating millions of energy-producing jobs. And I just saw a tweet yesterday on Labor Day from the mayor of Los Angeles telling people in Los Angeles to turn their air conditioning up to 78 degrees and to turn off all the lights in their house at 3 o'clock in the afternoon because they're afraid of blackouts.
And by the way, that whole system was something that Kamala Harris endorsed just a couple of years ago. Yeah.
Right, and that's a preview of Joe Biden's America. And I mean, I know a few things. I was in North Carolina last week with the vice president. It gets hot and humid in the summertime. You don't want to turn your air conditioning off at 3 o'clock.
Thank you. We don't. By the way, Joe Biden's latest ad on Law and Order was really curious because while he comes in and says, there's no place for violence in our society, he then turns around and never mentions Antifa, never mentions Black Lives Matter, but blames Donald Trump and Trump supporters. I mean, the way they set it up and the video while he's talking, you see a pickup truck with a Trump flag driving by, and to look at that, if you didn't know what was going on, you'd think to yourself, "Oh, it's the Trump supporters that are causing the riots."
Well, and that's what they have to try to believe because they know that this is a losing message for them. They know the violence in the streets is not being caused by Trump supporters. It's being caused by their supporters, and they can't distance themselves from it, and they can't stand with the police. I mean, it's amazing when you think about it. You had, I was in North Carolina last week when the vice president accepted the endorsement of the Southern Police Benevolent Association that represents about 60,000 policemen and women across the southern states. The National Fraternal Order of Police endorsed the president last Friday. And state after state, you see that these police organizations, there are even sheriffs that are changing parties from Democrat to Republican because they can't stand it any longer. They need to side with the people who are backing the blue. And I think that's why you see so many people across America, not just in the suburbs, but even in the inner cities, shaking their heads and saying, no, we need more police, not less police. And this Democrat platform is not going to keep my family, my small business, my kids safe.
You talk about the radicals and how the Democratic base is full of radicals, yet at the same time, we've got 435 members of the House, and only 4 of them are members of the squad. Now, there are a lot of useful idiots on that side of the aisle, but yet real hardcore radicals, they're highly limited. I mean, even Al Sharpton came out over the weekend and said, defunding the police is a ridiculous idea. I mean, if Al Sharpton said that, how far out of step are the AOCs of the world?
Well, and I think that's because Al Sharpton and, it was no different than Chris Cuomo and Don Lemon a few weeks ago on CNN. They're reading the polls.
Yeah.
They're seeing the polls and they're reacting because they know they're on the wrong side of this and they have to change because it is absolutely crushing their numbers. And that's why Joe Biden is coming out of the basement. That's why Al Sharpton and Cuomo and Lemon and all the others are coming out and saying the things that they're saying because their polls are collapsing, and they know they're on the wrong side of the American public on this one.
Why is it that MoveOn.org would come out? And I mean, there's a lot of different scenarios you can come up with as why they did it. But MoveOn.org came out today and said basically that unless Joe Biden wins by a landslide, then there's going to be all kinds of violence in the street.
I mean, think about that statement for a moment.
It's unbelievable.
You've got basically the radical liberal Democrat Party threatening riots and more violence if they don't get their way.
Yeah.
I mean, it's like kids throwing a temper tantrum. And the answer is for the parents, the adults in the room, to say enough, no more. We're not actually going to give in to what you want, and we're also not going to tolerate you acting out.
Yeah. Mark, we're out of time, but do appreciate your time. It's now before we go though, there are folks within our listening area probably going to want to drive over to Winston-Salem and see the president tomorrow evening. I guess it's 7:00 at the Winston-Salem Airport. Any other details we need to know? They need to make sure they've got tickets to get in and that sort of thing.
Absolutely. You need to register. You can either download our app, Trump 2020, either on iPhone or Android platforms, or go to donaldjtrump.com and look under events. You can sign up. You can register for it, and get in line early because even in COVID, we are still, the president will still get a crowd.
And I'm assuming this is a rain or shine event. I mean, the weather forecast doesn't sound real optimistic, but as far as you know, it's going to be. I
believe this is an airport hangar event, so okay. I think so it'll be rain or shine. but we'll definitely be there.
All right, Mark Lotter calling. And Mark, thanks a lot, and thanks for your optimistic outlook. You certainly have lifted. I mean, I've been optimistic. I think the president's going to win. I feel even more so after talking to you, though. Thank you, brother.
Absolutely. Got to work for it.
All right, thanks, Mark. Mark Lotter calling in and talking about Donald Trump being up in the Winston-Salem area tomorrow at 7 o'clock. Stay with us. I'll be right back.
Hastings Ford is having an end-of-the-year Labor Day sale through September 8th. This is the largest sale of the year. At Hastings Ford. The absolute best deals of the year, including 0% financing for 72 months on the Ford F-150, Fusion, EcoSport, Edge, Escapes, and Explorers. And right now through September 8th at Hastings Ford, get a brand new Ford Tough SUV for under $17,000. Or 0% for 72 months available. Let me repeat that. During this Labor Day sales event, you can get a new Ford SUV for under $17,000 or 0% financing for 72 months available. Check out the all-new redesigned Ford Expedition with savings up to $10,000 and 0% is available during this event. But you have to hurry because this sales event and these prices will end on September 8th at Hastings Ford in Greenville. Don't miss the best prices of the year now and lots of choices on the lot now through September 8th at Hastings Ford in Greenville.
Cal Cunningham makes government work for himself. Cunningham billed taxpayers for 28 days of expenses, even though he only showed up to work for 6 days. That's right. Cal Cunningham billed taxpayers for nearly a full month of expenses, even though he only worked 6 days. That's shady. Cunningham also took nearly $40,000 in tax credits for a home renovation project, using a tax break to add a butler's pantry and wet bar in his house. A tax break to add a wet bar and butler's pantry? Really, Cal? He also blasted the COVID relief program, while the company that paid him took the cash, raking in up to $2 million from the program Cunningham criticized. Sound corrupt? That's Cal Cunningham. He says one thing and does another. Senate Leadership Fund paid for and is responsible for the content of this advertising. Not authorized by any candidate or candidates committee. www.senateleadershipfund.org.
Divorce is never easy, but there's a right way and a wrong way. At A&R Law, the law firm of Ashley Nicole Russell, healthy divorce is what they emphasize. For the greater good of everyone, there's a way for a divorce with integrity for both sides. That's why Ashley Nicole Russell wants you to know you have options. At A&R Law, their focus is to help you and protect your children. Traditional litigation settlements are very costly and no one really wins. Ashley Nicole Russell initiated the concept of collaborative divorce in Eastern Carolina, and it's helped countless families. Ashley Nicole literally wrote the book on this concept, The Cure for Divorce Culture, and she speaks all over the country to help promote the idea of healthy divorce. If you're currently experiencing conflict, please call the offices in Greenville, Beaufort, or Raleigh and let them walk you through the steps that can lead to a positive, life-changing experience for you and your children. Learn more at anrlaw.com. Attorney Ashley Nicole Russell can show you a better way to divorce.
News and views.
He's kind of a diva.
He's absolutely fascinating.
Ultimate gentleman spy. Irresistible to women, deadly to his enemies, a legend in his own time.
You won't believe what he's going to say next on Talk 96.3 and 103.7. Here's Tom Lamprecht.
All right, thank you very much. So when we're talking to Mark Lotter about the president's visit to North Carolina for tomorrow up in Winston-Salem, I'd mentioned to you and mentioned to Mark Joe Biden's newest ad on Law and Order. This is rather interesting. This is Joe Biden. This is cut one. Clark. This is Joe Biden's newest ad for Law and Order and who is to blame for the violence. Listen to what Joe Biden says, and this ad is even more significant when you see it because the video in the background has got a pickup truck with people riding in the back of it, waving a Trump flag, and as he's talking about violence, you can connect the dots.
I want to make it absolutely clear. Rioting is not protesting. Looting is not protesting. It's lawlessness, plain and simple. And those who do it should be prosecuted. Fires are burning and we have a president who fans the flames. He can't stop the violence because for years he's fomented it. But his failure to call on his own supporters to stop acting as an armed militia in this country shows how weak he is.
That's unbelievable. So it's, you see this ad, and if you knew nothing about the riots going on around the United States, you'd think it is the Trump supporters that are doing the rioting. And by the way, I do have a story here I want to get to that the Civil War has started. What's curious too, by the way, before I go any further, I have been discombobulated completely with yesterday being off. The Trump rally is tonight at 7 o'clock. Tonight at 7 o'clock. Now, you can still get up there if you want to go, but you better get on your high horse. Now, if you're in the most western part of our listening area, you might be able to get there by 7 o'clock. I'm thinking it's Monday. Today is Tuesday. Tonight is the event. Mark Lauder called back and said, hey, tell Tom to tell him it's tonight, not tomorrow night. My apologies. So that's what Joe Biden is. That's what he's promoting right now. So he can come out and say, well, I've condemned the violence. The only problem is he's condemning the Trump supporters for the violence. Now, there has been some kickback. Before we get to the kickback, though, remember what big old Jerry Nadler, the guy who wears his pants up to his neck, this is what when he was asked just about a month ago about the violence up in Portland, the riots going on, here's what he said.
Do you disavow the violence from Antifa that's happening in Portland right now? That's
a myth that's being spread only in Washington, D.C.
About Antifa in Portland?
Yes.
Sir, there's videos everywhere online. There's fires and riots. They're throwing fireworks at federal officers. DHS is there. Look online. It gets crazy, Mr. Nadler.
Yeah, it's crazy. He's crazy. So Jerry Nadler was going around, that's a myth. That's just a myth. Outside of Washington, D.C., that doesn't exist. Now, I realize the people up in D.C., they do live in a bubble. They have no clue what's actually going out in the real world. But Jerry Nadler comes out and says, that's a myth. That's a myth. That's not happening. No, there's no deal here. Unfortunately, the Civil War has started. I say unfortunate because I don't want to see anybody get hurt. I don't want to see vigilantism take off. I don't want to see the 17-year-old young man up in Kenosha who was protecting the fire or the gas station ended up being chased down and in self-defense ended up shooting shooting three, killing two. And I'm not blaming him, but that 17-year-old probably he shouldn't have been there. But nonetheless, he ended up defending himself, and I think he will get off in self-defense. But over the holiday weekend, there were at least two people that were arrested after Trump supporters traveling from Portland suburbs clashed with counter-protesters outside the Oregon State Capitol. Ty Parker, 53, of Colorado, was arrested on suspicions of misdemeanor assault and first-degree intimidation. Trenton Wolfskill of Eugene, Oregon, 37 years old, was arrested pretty much on the same charges. Both have since been released. It was interesting. One man in a bulletproof vest came up and beat an Antifa one man in a bulletproof vest beat a counter-protester, knocking him into the ground. That person was chased down, and he was knocked down to the ground. At one point, a woman doused the fallen protester with pepper spray, shouting at the man, "This is what you did to me. Do you like that? I told you I would get you back." And, of course, the officers, they came in and made some arrests. The only point I want to make out of all this, I'm not promoting vigilantism, but if the police don't or can't do their job. And I said the same thing several weeks ago. If the police don't or can't do their jobs, does Antifa and Black Lives Matter think that the American public is going to stand by and just be attacked? I mean, I know people who would never have dreamed of arming themselves are now considering arming themselves. In fact, right now, if you want to go out and purchase a firearm, you're probably going to have to wait for a while for it to come in The demand for ammunition and firearms is unbelievably high. So you look at what's going on. Did Antifa and Black Lives Matter, did they really think that the people were going to stand by and idly be run over? Like you'd run over with a steamroller? I mean, they're not going to be steamrolled. They are going to stand up, and they are going to fight back. And this idea that you're going to threaten the American public, saying that if Joe Biden doesn't win in a landslide, that there'll be all kinds of violence? You think that's... I mean, do you honestly think that you're going to intimidate the American public? There's some people you'll intimidate. Now, maybe the people you hang around with in your close circles. I mean, that's the other thing too. I mean, look, when you take off their hoods, when you take off their black T-shirts, you find out that they're, a 20-something or a teenage white kid that doesn't know any better. The American, and again, I'm not promoting vigilantism, but this is, all you got to do is connect the dots. People aren't going to put up with this. I hope we don't have another civil war. But in some aspects, it's already started. We got to take a time out. We'll be right back.
Four decades have passed since the first Albemarle boat hit the water. Today, with more than 3,800 hulls to their credit, Albemarle continues handcrafting their boats one at a time. Members of Albemarle's founding families remain at the helm of the company, and they operate on the same guiding principles on which the company started. They call it Albemarle Built, and it summarizes the people, techniques, materials, experience, and testing that goes into every boat they build. Albemarle has been on a product development roll, introducing 5 new models in just over 3 years. If you've not seen an Albemarle lately, you owe it to yourself to check out the company's semi-custom dual consoles and offshore expresses from 25 to 41 feet. Visit Harris Marine in Morehead City or Bellhart Marine in Wilmington, or make an appointment to tour the Edenton facility. For more information, contact Albemarle Boats, the Carolina Classic, 252-482-7600. Check out all the models online at albemarleboats.com.
And here's the snap. Crack open a Hampton Farms in-shell peanut, and the game's in your hands. The only peanuts with flavor roasted inside the shell, Hampton Farms are healthy, high protein, and fun to crack open and crunch. In your backyard or on your flat screen, bust open classic game day in-shells with Pirate football at home. Find us in the produce section of your local grocery store. With Hampton Farms, every day is opening day. Go Pirates! In the studio with Jason Pear of Pear Electronics. Jason, Pear Electronics is a name we all know and love, but why should people call Pear Electronics?
Well, number one, Henry, is that we're local. We offer some of the best technicians in the business and the best brands. And also, we're part of ProSource, which is the nation's largest buying group, which offers financing and the best prices. So we're as competitive as being online or the big box stores.
And let's talk about security products. You still have alarm.com.
We do. Pear Electronics being in the security business, we have a lot of things to offer. We have no contract, low monthly payments, video doorbells, cameras, be able to put everything on one app, and it's simple to use, and that's the key word.
All right, it's Pear Electronics, your one-stop shop for wireless, video, security. They're your go-to group for all your entertainment needs. How do people contact you?
They contact us at 252-439-5295 or visit us at PearElectronics.com.
That's Jason Pear with Pear Electronics.
With rates being historically low, now is the best time to buy or refinance your home. This is Talbot Green with Angel Oak Home Loans. Now is the time to take advantage of the opportunity to buy more home or refinance your current mortgage. The combination of our local team's experience and Angel Oak's wide offerings of products from standard conventional, government, and portfolio loans has something for most financial situations. For more information, call Talbot Green, Joanne Weir, or Wanda Hager at 751-2060.
NMLS 1719250 and 685842. Equal housing lender.
Your week.
Police officers, I'm praying for you.
Your news every day as events happen.
Convalescent plasma for patients.
We'll happen to be there.
We can't have Joe Biden rule the country and have no police. Joe Biden's agenda is made in China.
Back to the show that really makes you think.
Come on, man.
Here's Tom Lamprecht with more news and views on Talk 96.3 and 103.7.
All right, welcome back in. So one of the hardest hit industries in California and across the United States have been personal fitness gyms. In California, they've been closed since April. However, government employees in government gyms have been open for months. Apparently, this has just now been revealed. It's shocking, it's infuriating, said Danielle Rapkin of CrossFit Golden Gate. Even though they're getting exposed, there's no repercussions, no ramifications. It's shocking. The gyms have been open for government employees, including police officers, judges, lawyers, bailiffs, paralegals, according to one report. One such gym, the Hall of Justice gym, has been open since July the 1st. And what's the big deal? There's two sets of standards, and it's a double standard. And
I just had my hair washed.
Regardless of your PPP loans, you can't stay in business and survive after being forced to be shut down for 5 months. House Speaker Nancy Pelosi was accused by critics last week of using her platform to damage a local hair salon owner in San Francisco. She was called out yesterday over a tweet she posted celebrating the, quote, hardworking families across the United States on Labor Day. Over generations, working people across America built the middle class and secured progress for hardworking families, Pelosi wrote. House Democrats are unified in our commitment to American working families. Hashtag Happy Labor Day. One commentator responded to Pelosi's tweet, is this the same middle class that set you up? Nah. Another wrote, nice hair.
I just had my hair washed.
Yeah, she just had her hair washed. It's amazing. It's amazing that they don't get it. The other side doesn't get it. They don't see the double standard that they live by. And yet they continue to do it. And it doesn't bother them. And what do? They blame the other side. What does Nancy Pelosi do? She blames them that she was set up. Heaven forbid, did somebody put a gun to her head and say, you're going to go into even though nobody else can go into the salon, you are. Unbelievable. Our thanks to Mark Lotter. Again, that event is tonight, 7 o'clock in Winston-Salem. Hope you can make it. We'll see you later. See you tomorrow at 5. Bye-bye, everybody.
GoEco is the office equipment company that people all over eastern North Carolina are turning to for their office copier and equipment needs. GoEco sells and